The sun hangs low over the endless dunes of North Africa, a merciless orb baking the earth into cracked clay. Dust devils whirl like ghosts across the scarred landscape, carrying the acrid tang of cordite and sweat-soaked wool. For 6 grueling months, this has been the crucible of the Afrika Korps, the elite desert warriors of the Reich forged in Rommel's fire, unbowed by the relentless Allied advance. But now, the wind carries a different whisper. Defeat. We push in on a ragged line of German soldiers trudging through the haze, their panzer-gray uniforms caked in ochre sand. Rifles slung low, not in defiance but exhaustion. Among them walks Lieutenant Hans Radke, 32, sharp-featured with the haunted eyes of a man who has seen too many sunrises over burning tanks. His Afrika Korps insignia gleams dully on his collar, a scorpion etched in tarnished silver. In his breast pocket, a small leather-bound diary, its pages filled with the precise script of an engineer-turned-reluctant warrior. The fatherland endures, he had written weeks ago, after Kasserine. We are the unbreakable chain. Beside him shuffles Corporal Otto Krebs, a sturdy Bavarian craftsman pressed into service, his hands calloused from pre-war lathes now stained with the grease of half-repaired half-tracks. Otto mutters under his breath, his voice a low rumble like distant artillery. This heat, it's not war. It's purgatory. Hans shoots him a glance, stern but laced with the camaraderie of shared delusion. They are the master race, after all. Aryan steel in a world of inferiors. America? A mongrel nation of jazz and jazz hands, softened by excess, ill-prepared for the iron will of the thousand-year Reich. The final assault unfolds in stuttering bursts of light and shadow. Allied guns, American 105mm howitzers, British 25-pounders, thunder from the hills, their shells arcing like vengeful comets. German 88s bark in reply, but their muzzles droop, ammunition spent. Panzers, once the scourge of the sands, lie gutted hulks, their treads splayed like the legs of felled beasts. The air vibrates with the roar of Spitfires overhead, strafing the retreat. Hans crouches behind a dune, binoculars pressed to his eyes. Through the lenses, he sees the noose tightening. British 8th Army to the east, American II Corps to the west, French forces sealing the north. No evacuation barges from Sicily this time. Allied naval supremacy has choked the sea lanes. Hold the line, he shouts to his platoon, voice cracking like dry leather. But the line frays. Men drop their Mausers, hands raised in white-flagged surrender. Otto fires a final burst from his MG-42. The gun's evil chatter echoing his frustration before it jams on sand-clogged rounds. Then, the order comes, crackling over field radios grown silent. Kameraden, es ist aus. Surrender to the nearest Allied unit. From Field Marshal von Arnim himself, captured hours later with his staff. The desert, once a gateway to empire, becomes a graveyard of illusions. In the shadow of ancient Carthage, where Hannibal once dreamed of Rome's fall, another empire crumbles. May 13, 1943, the Tunisian campaign ends not with a blitz, but a whimper. Over 250,000 Axis troops lay down arms, 125,000 Germans alone, the remnants of Rommel's vaunted Afrika Korps. They are engineers who built bridges across the Nile, officers who toasted victory in Tripoli, laborers who believed in the Führer's unerring gaze. They expected martyrdom, or at least the barbarity of Bolshevik captivity. Instead, they meet America. The prisoners shuffle into makeshift enclosures, barbed wire strung hasty between date palms, guarded not by snarling dogs but by GIs in crisp olive drab, chewing gum and sharing cigarettes. No bayonets fixed, no barked insults in broken German. Hans blinks against the glare, expecting the lash of retribution. Instead, a young American sergeant, face boyish under his helmet, hands him a canteen of cool water. Trink das Fritz. It's clean. No dysentery this time. Hans takes it warily, the metal cool against his parched lips. Poison? The thought flickers, but thirst wins. The water is sweet, filtered, American ingenuity even in defeat's aftermath. Otto, queuing for his turn, watches as medics in white armbands move through the lines, bandaging wounds without triage by rank. A Feldwebel with a gut shot gets morphine before a private with blisters. This is no army, Otto grunts to Hans. It's a factory line. The efficiency astounds. Crates of K-rations stack like bricks, tinned ham, hard biscuits, chocolate bars wrapped in foil that crinkles like forbidden treasure. No meager bread and watery soup as in the desert's final weeks. Numbers flash in Hans's mind. Logistics officer by training, 275,000 prisoners to process, yet the queues move like clockwork. Trucks rumble in convoy, their engines purring on high-octane fuel, offloading tents, latrines, even mobile showers, jury-rigged from repurposed fuel drums. Electric generators hum, casting pools of light against the encroaching dusk, banishing the shadows where scorpions and doubt thrive. A crane, yellow behemoth on tracks, swings a pallet of medical supplies aloft, cables singing taut. Negro stevedores in sweat-soaked shirts laugh as they lash it down, their voices a rhythm of call and response, unburdened by the overseer's whip. Hans's jaw tightens. Untermenschen, the propaganda reels had sneered. Yet here they are, operating machinery with the precision of Berlin clockmakers. Further off, women in khaki skirts, nurses from the 48th Evacuation Hospital, dispense sulfa powder, their hands steady, voices soft with Midwestern vowels. "You're safe now, Han. The war's over for you." Hans pulls out his diary, pencil stub trembling. May 13, 1943. Tunis falls, not to superior tactics, but to sheer abundance. They feed us better than we fed ourselves. What sorcery is this? To a fellow POW, wiping sand from his eyes. They treat us like guests at a beer hall. Where's the hate? We bombed their ships, killed their boys at Kasserine. Maybe they've won already. Look at the trucks. Liberties, Fords, Studebakers. Engines that don't cough like our Opels. And the food. Chocolate, mein Gott, chocolate for prisoners. Ruhig, boys. Camels. Better than your Turkish weeds. Name's Kowalski, Polish stock, like half my platoon. War's war, but family's family. Otto lights up, the flare illuminating his stunned face. The smoke curls lazy, mingling with the scent of diesel and distant sea salt. For the first time, doubt cracks the facade. If they can provision like this in the field, what waits across the water? These men, indoctrinated in the cult of racial purity and martial vigor, arrive expecting the lash of democracy's weakness. A fractured giant, riven by strikes and silk-stocking decadence. Goebbels's broadcasts had painted America as a Jewish Bolshevik chimera, its factories idled by mongrel unions, its soldiers soft from Coca-Cola and cinema. Yet here, in the rubble of Tunisia, the first dispatches arrive. Not chains, but checklists. Medical exams by the thousands, delousing stations steaming with DDT fog, vaccinations administered by assembly line precision. No summary executions, no slave galleys. Just order. Humane, inexorable order. The inciting fracture begins not with a bullet but a meal. POWs sit cross-legged on the sand, tins open under the stars, devouring cheese processed in Wisconsin dairies, beans canned in California sun. Hans chews slowly, the salt and spice exploding on his tongue, a flavor of plenty he hasn't known since Munich Christmases. They outfeed us, he scribbles by flashlight's glow. Not as conquerors, but as providers. Days blur into processing. Interrogations are polite affairs, Geneva Convention forms signed in triplicate, valuables inventoried with receipts. Otto marvels at the typewriters clacking in canvas offices, carbon copies fluttering like captured flags. Like building a watch, he whispers to Hans, every gear accounted for. The craftsman in him stirs, unbidden admiration for the machinery of mercy. By week's end, the great migration commences. Ships, Liberty vessels fresh from U.S. yards crowd Bizertas harbor, their hulls plated in steel that laughs at U-boat torpedoes. Escorted by destroyers slicing the Mediterranean blue, these behemoths carry not just men, but the seeds of revelation. 5,000 POWs per voyage, bound for Norfolk, Virginia. Hans boards the USS Wakefield, a former liner rechristened for war, its deck scrubbed to hospital gleam. Bunks stacked 3 high but with mattresses, not straw pallets. Meals thrice daily, oatmeal, spam, fruit cocktail from Hawaiian groves. As the anchor's chain rattles skyward, Hans leans on the rail, Tunis fading to a smudge on the horizon. The sea swells gentle, Atlantic-bound, under escort's vigilant wings. They build ships faster than we can bury our dead, he writes. The pencils scratch a confession in the salt spray. Otto joins him, puffing a pilfered Camel. What now, Lieutenant? Siberia, or the gas chambers of Roosevelt's revenge? Hans doesn't answer. The horizon beckons, vast and uncharted. In Berlin, they had sneered at America's arsenal of democracy, a joke, a fluke. But as the convoy steams west, the first wireless bulletins crackle through the holds. Tales from earlier batches, whispers of ports where cranes dance like giants, cities ablaze with electric fire. Arrogance, that old armor, begins to chafe. The surrender in Tunisia was tactical, a pause in the Führer's grand design. But for these men, it marks the threshold of a deeper capitulation. Not to bullets or bombs, but to the quiet thunder of a nation's pulse. They step from the cage of ideology into a world where efficiency wears a human face. The Reich promised glory through blood. America offers survival through systems. And in that offering, the first myth fractures. Weakness is not diversity, but isolation. They had expected cages. Instead, they found civilization in motion. The USS Wakefield plows through the ink-black swells, her bows slicing foam under a canopy of stars sharp as shrapnel. Low thunder rumbles from her engines below. A steady pulse, not the erratic cough of Kriegsmarine freighters dodging wolfpacks. Escorts flank her, sleek destroyers, their wakes glowing phosphorescent, radar sweeps painting the void in green flickers. No U-boat dares this corridor now. The Atlantic, once a graveyard, has become a highway of steel and certainty. In the dim-lit hold, Hans Radke perches on his bunk, diary open on his knee. The air hangs heavy with the brine of 2,000 bodies, unwashed but fed. Bully beef and biscuits thrice daily, augmented by fresh bread baked in the ship's galley from stateside flour. Flickering bulbs overhead cast shadows that dance like specters across the faces of his fellow captives. Otto Krebs sprawls nearby, whittling a splinter of pine into a crude scorpion with his thumbnail knife, a talisman against the sea's indifference. Low, to Hans, voice cutting the murmur, 2 weeks of this tub, Leutnant. Feels like eternity. Remember the Gneisenau? Leaking like a sieve off Crete. These Yanks, their ships don't roll. They cut the waves like a good stiletto. Hans nods absently, pencil tracing lines in the salt-damp pages. June 5, 1943. 10th day at sea. No alarms, no depth charges. The convoy steams at 18 knots. Flotilla, precision without the Führer's micromanaging radiograms. What fuel feeds this beast? Not desperation, surely. Arrogance lingers in his stroke, a engineer's pride masking unease. The Reich's navy, once the terror of Scapa Flow, now rusts in fjords under RAF bombs. But America? Propaganda had dismissed it as a paper tiger, its yards churning rust buckets for scrap. Yet here they glide, untouched. The voyage is no mere transit, it's a gestation. 38 Liberty ships had ferried these men from Bizerte's bloodied quays, vessels welded in weeks, not years, their rivets singing the song of mass production. For the POWs, crammed in holds meant for troops, not tourists, the crossing unmasks the first veils. No scurvy rations or bilgewater grog, instead vitamin pills pressed in New Jersey labs, movies projected on bulkhead screens. Casablanca, irony unintended, its lovers fleeing a war these Germans had ignited. Laughter ripples through the tears unbidden at Bogart's cynicism. Is this captivity? Otto wonders aloud one evening as the projector whirs to a halt. Or a seminar in excess? Days bleed into lectures, Geneva mandated but laced with subtle barbs. American officers, clipboards in hand, quiz ranks and trades. Engineers? Good, we'll need hands for the harvest. No beatings for evasion, just notations, promises of work details. Hans fields questions on Panzer torsion bars, his answers clipped, but the interrogator, a bespectacled captain from MIT, nods with genuine hunger. Fascinating. Ever seen a continuous track pour? We'll show you. Shock registers in Hans's gut. Not plunder, but exchange. The Reich hoarded knowledge like a dragon. America disseminated it like daylight. Nights bring introspection under the moon's cold gaze. Hans paces the deck watch, salt crusting his tunic, staring at the convoy's silhouette. A floating city of war, unassailable. They've cracked Enigma, the whispers go, but that's old news. Newer tales filter from the crew. Factories in Detroit stamping tanks like Model Ts, women in overalls arc-welding hulls that outpace Bismarck's birth. Otto joins him one midnight, breath fogging in the chill. Heard from the galley rats, your precious Volkswagens? They make 1 million cars a year over there. 1 million. What do we build? Wunderwaffen that fizzle in the mud, but wavering. Propaganda, Krebs. Roosevelt's lies to buoy the mongrels. Wait till we see the rot, the strikes, the jazz niggers running wild. This ship's a showpiece, the heartland's hollow. Otto snorts, flicking his cigarette butt into the foam. A camel, traded for a Luger clip. The glow arcs brief, a comet's tail, but doubt's ember kindles. In the holds, card games sprout, scat yielding to gin rummy, rules learned over Hershey bars. A Feldwebel from Saxony teaches poker to a knot of privates, their laughter echoing like cracking ice. Unity without the lash, Hans notes. No SS overseers prowling, just voluntary fire watches, rosters drawn by vote. The myth of Aryan discipline frays against this casual cohesion. The skyline emerges like a mirage made manifest. Hampton Roads, the world's greatest naval base, uncoiling from the mist. Pilot boats dart like minnows, tugs belching black smoke as they shepherd the convoy inward. Hans presses to the rail, Otto at his shoulder, the air electric with the tang of creosote and machine oil. No blackout veils here. Sodium lamps blaze along the piers, etching cranes in stark relief. Girders tall as cathedrals, booms swinging cargoes with balletic grace. The harbor unfolds in orchestrated frenzy. Dozens of ships, liberties, victories, tankers fat with Jersey crude, nudge berths like puzzle pieces. Cranes, 50-ton brutes from Newport News yards, groan under loads. Crates of 50 caliber rounds stacked like cordwood, jeeps slung in nets, glistening olive. Workers swarm the docks, longshoremen in denim, their hooks flashing, welders' arcs spitting blue fire, stevedores of every hue directing traffic with whistles sharp as commands. A Negro foreman, clipboard in hand, bellows orders to a white crew wrestling the Liberty's propeller shaft. No salutes, no barked jewels, just nods, the flow unbroken. Breath-catching. Got him, Himmel. Look at the rhythm, like a watch factory, but for giants. That crane, hydraulics smoother than our Me-109 flaps, and the lights, they burn all night. Hans's engineer eye devours it. Conveyor belts snaking from holds to rail spurs, disgorging shells by the pallet, output metrics screaming in his brain. 2,700 ships launched in 42 alone, each a dagger to the Reich's underbelly. They don't build, they birth fleets. The shock lands like a shell burst, silent but seismic. Propaganda reels had shown breadlines in Chicago, not this symphony of steel. Cities that never sleep. Norfolk pulses now, skyline aglow, factories on the James River belching sparks into the peach dawn. Close on a slipway. A Liberty hull, skeleton riveted in days, slides stern first into the Elizabeth River, christened by a riveter's torch. Cheers erupt, mixed crews, women in snoods handing hammers to boys not yet drafted. Wide, rail yards hum, hoppers dumping coal like black waterfalls into tenders. Locomotives, diesel electrics from Electromotive, couple with a hydraulic kiss, hauling flat cars bound for the front. POV from the deck, electric trolleys zip along pierheads, laden with Bofors guns. Overhead, Zeppelin-like barrage balloons bob, but no fear shadows the faces below. Laughter cuts the din, a lunch whistles trill, thermos caps popping like champagne. Major Paul Noland appears in the throng below. A tall American officer, Stetson tilted, orchestrating debarkation with quiet authority. No pistol on hip, just a notebook, jotting manifests. His eyes scan the rails, spotting Hans's gaze. A nod, almost collegial. Welcome to the show, Lieutenant. We'll get you settled. No gloat, no surrender, Fritz. Just efficiency, human-scaled. The gangway clangs down, POWs filing ashore in columns of 5. Feet hit planking that vibrates with the harbor's heartbeat. Medics wait with stethoscopes. Red Cross donuts steam on trays, coffee urns gurgle. Otto bites into the pastry, flaky, sugared, his face crumpling in unfeigned awe. This, for us, not even our officers ate like this in Tripoli. Hans swallows dry, diary forgotten in his fist. Abundance as weapon. The Reich starved for fuel. They feast on it. Trucks wait, Studebaker US-6s, their 6 wheels purring to ferry them to Camp Hereford, a transit sprawl of barracks amid pine barrens. But first, the ritual. Delousing showers and canvas tents, hot water cascading from boilers fired by Virginia anthracite. Clean uniforms issued, surplus fatigues, stamped USA, but tailored loose, comfortable. No rags, no dilapidated Wehrmacht issue. As the convoy disgorges inland, the true scale reveals. Miles of dry docks, where carriers like the Enterprise, scarred from Midway, undergo refits, her flight deck, a hive of rivet guns. Smokestacks plume from Ford's Willow Run, distant but palpable, birthing B-24s at 1 per hour. Electric lights lace the horizon, a necklace of fire-defying blackout edicts. Cities that never sleep, indeed. Baltimore's glow to the north, Newport News's forge red to the south. Norfolk is no anomaly, it's the artery. In 43, American yards launch a ship every 4 days. Riveting plates at 1,000 an hour, engines tested on dynamometers humming like contented beasts. The POWs, herded toward boxcars for the Western Haul, glimpse the machinery of moral conviction. Not slave galleys, but unions bargaining for safety, immigrants from Ellis Island wielding torches beside Oklahoma farm boys. Diversity not as decay, but dynamo. Compassion in the coffee, order in the offload. Each crane's swing, each weld's spark, indicts the lie. Emotion is not weakness, it's the weld holding the hull. Hans mounts the truck bed, Otto beside him, the engine's low roar drowning their silence. Through chain-link fences, they pass warehouses groaning with Lend-Lease crates, Shermans for Patton, Matildas for Monty. This is the arsenal, Hans thinks. The realization coiling cold. Not myth, muscle. The convoy rolls out, Norfolk's lights receding like a lover's farewell. But the after-image burns. A civilization in full throat, devouring distance and doubt. In the diary that night, by Camp Lantern. They thought America was a myth, but the myth was Germany. The first light of a Virginia summer gilds the switchyards, turning boxcars into burnished loaves on endless sidings. Steam locomotives, massive Pacifics from Baldwin Locomotive Works, huff and sigh, their cowcatchers glinting like sabers. Whistles pierce the mist, a chorus of departure, as POW trains assemble. 40 cars each, painted olive drab, windows barred but not blind. Guards perch on cabooses, M1 carbines slung casual, but the air lacks menace, more sheriff's posse than Gestapo cordon. Hans Radke climbs aboard car 17, Otto Krebs at his heels, their duffels light with issued kit, toothbrush, soap sliver, a dog-eared Bible in English they can't yet parse. The interior surprises, benches bolted firm, not splintered planks, wire mesh vents admitting breezes scented with pine sap and axle grease. No chains on ankles, no slop buckets in corners. Like a commuter run to Hamburg, Otto mutters, settling by a window smeared with journey's promise. Hans slides in opposite, diary balanced on knee, pencil poised. To the heart of the beast. If Norfolk was the jaw, what teeth await? The train jolts alive, couplings clanging in domino ripple. Bells clang at crossings, semaphores dropping like guillotines. They pull out eastward first, counterintuitive, a loop to evade spies, then swing south on the Atlantic coastline, bound for the Great Transversal. Norfolk to Texas, 1,800 miles of revelation, uncoiling like a newsreel of the impossible. The journey is no mere relocation. It's an odyssey scripted by steel and schedule. From Tidewater Flats to Appalachian Folds, Piedmont Plains to Bayou Black, these men traverse the Republic's spine. Boxcars become lecture halls where ideology meets immensity. In 43, America hauls 90% of the world's freight on rails laced with 250,000 miles of track, diesels supplanting steam in a symphony of progress. For the Afrika Korps captives, each gradient climbed, each vista unfurled, chips at the edifice of superiority. Not with lectures or loudspeakers, but landscapes that indict. The train bridges the bay on a causeway of timber and trestle, water flashing azure below. Hans presses forehead to glass, eyes widening at the span. Engineered marvel, not the rickety pontoons of Tobruk harbors. Ferries ply the channel, laden with coal barges from Appalachia, their stacks trailing feathers of smoke. Tunnels underwater? Otto echoes a guard's idle boast, incredulous. For trains? Madness. Our engineers would call it hubris. But the structure holds, unyielding, a testament to federal vision over feudal fiefdoms. Disbelief settles first as fog, then storm. The cars sway through tobacco fields of eastern Virginia, where sharecroppers, black and white in tandem, guide mechanical harvesters, their blades whirring through golden leaf like scythes of plenty. No serfs bent double, tractors from International Harvester growl across acres, plows turning soil black and fertile. Otto, the craftsman, traces a combine silhouette against the horizon. That machine reaps a field's worth in hours. We threshed by hand in Bavaria, backs breaking for the Reich's silos. Hans nods, throat tight. Propaganda swore their farms failed, dust bowls, bread riots, lies. Piedmont prairies, cotton gins hum under canvas awnings, women in bandanas feeding bowls into pneumatic sorters. A child no older than 10 pedals a bicycle generator, lighting the foreman's lamp. Prosperity pulses, barns fat with surplus, roads paved blacktop, not rutted mud. Appalachian hollers, coal tipples tower like iron cathedrals, conveyor belts dumping anthracite into hoppers bound for Norfolk's maws. Miners emerge shift's end, faces lamp black but unbroken, wives waiting with lunch pails and thermoses of chicory brew. No conscripted Slavs, free men trading sweat for scrip redeemable in company stores stocked with canned peaches from Georgia. Carolina low country, rice paddies gleam under irrigation canals, ditches dug by CCC boys, now channeling floodwaters with sluice gates precise as clockwork. Negro crews in overalls laugh over lunch, banjos twanging faint through the pines, their labor voluntary, output triple the Reich's vaunted Vierjahresplan yields. Dialogue sparks in the cars, guards circulating with coffee urns and queries. Major Paul Noyland boards at a water stop in Rocky Mount, his uniform rumpled from desk duty, a satchel of maps under arm. He doesn't preach, he points. See that mill yonder, Textile King, rayon from DuPont, thread spun finer than spider silk. Your U-boats can't sink chemistry. Noelland's voice is gravelly Pennsylvanian, eyes sharp but kind, the architect of exposure. POWs assigned window seats by rotation, diaries unchecked but encouraged. Leaning into the car, gesturing out, "Gentlemen, that's Progress, North Carolina." Named right. Factories like that churn uniforms for your old foes, khaki for GIs, Sarge for Tommies. All under one roof, no Luftwaffe raids to scatter 'em. Hesitant craftsman's curiosity winning. How? No bottlenecks? In Munich are plants idle for parts, coal shortages, Jewish saboteurs, they say. Saboteurs? Try supply chains. Rail from Pittsburgh steel to Spartanburg looms, no red tape. Unions hash it out, but production rolls. Look, smoke from 3 shifts. Women weld night runs, kids sort scrap after school. Hans scribbles furiously, June 2010. Smokestacks pierce the sky like defiant spines. Not the pall of Ruhr smoke, choking and sparse, but clean plumes of purpose. They harness rivers for power. TVA dams, giants taming the Tennessee. Electricity for all, not just the party elite. The train dives into a cut. Pines whispering against steel, but glimpses persist. Billboards touting war bonds. Faces of Rosie the Riveter flexing biceps under slogans, "We can do it." Diversity in newsprint. Italian names on shops, Polish delis beside Jewish tailors, all flying the same starred banner. Midday brings the Carolinas' heartland, where the rails parallel the fall line, rivers foaming white over granite ledges, hydro plants humming turbines that light bulbs in Berlin's shadow. Factories flank the tracks. Curtiss Wright in Buffalo, but here in Charlotte, propeller shops forging blades from magnesium alloys, lathes spinning at 3,000 RPM. Otto presses nose to pain, mesmerized by a drop forge hammer, 10 tons slamming dies, stamping landing gear with pneumatic grace. Precision beyond Krupp, he breathes. No slave sparks flying, just men in goggles, sharing blueprints like beer. Arrogance ebbs into shock, then a numb awe. Whispers chain through cars, they have no ration cards here, bread on every table. A guard Midwestern farm boy named Eli passes out apples, crisp, ruby from Virginia orchards, untouched by the war's blight. Grown yesterday, eat up, beats your ersatz swill. Hans bites, juice tart on tongue, evoking boyhood hikes in the Black Forest. Plenty without plunder. As dusk dyes the sky mauve, the train breasts the blue ridge, gradients straining rods to singing pitch. Tunnels bore black, emerging to vistas of Shenandoah velvet. Valleys checkered with wheat, reapers circling like scimitars. No bombed craters, no refugee caravans. Model A Ford's putter lanes, headlights winking like fireflies. Otto slumps, spent. Lieutenant, if this is weakness, what word for strength? Hans closes his diary, the day's entries a litany. Farms mechanized to feed armies, factories birthing bombers by breakfast, a land where innovation outstrips indoctrination. Night falls as they thread the Piedmont into Georgia, lanterns flickering in cabooses. Nolan departs at a flag stop, but his maps linger, folded on benches, annotated with queries. How many tons per acre? What alloy for the keel? Seeds of dialogue, not decree. Across these rails the antagonist reveals, not a man but a mirage, the myth that tyranny tempers, that uniformity forges might. Each farm's furrow, each factory's forge, bears witness to the contrary. Freedom's forge burns hotter, fueled by the varied hands of a republic. Compassion in the communal silo, order in the open market. The POWs, lulled by the rockabye rhythm, confront the devastation. The Reich, for all its rallies and runes, starves on scarcity while America overflows. Disbelief curdles to reflection. The trains whistle a dirge for delusions slain. Dawn of the second day, graze the windows over Atlanta's sprawl. Rail nexus where Southern Crescent meets the Western and Atlantic. Yards choked with hoppers of bauxite for Alabama smelters. The air thickens with kaolin dust from kaolin pits, white as surrender flags, feeding ceramics for insulators and GE turbines. Further south, Birmingham's blast furnaces roar, pig iron flowing rivers of fire into molds for Liberty-shipped teals, output eclipsing the Ruhr's rationed glow. Otto wakes to the scent of pine tar and phosphorus, staring at steel mills where Italian POWs, no, wait, their own kind now, wait on work details, but glimpsed through chain link. Crews of every shade pouring ladles, sparks cascading like 4th of July defiant. The Gulfward Haul intensifies. Mississippi Delta, where cotton kings reign on John Deere empires, tractors tilling alluvial black gold. Levees hold the mighty muddy, Corps of Engineers bulwarks against flood, while barge tows snake the river, grain elevators vomiting wheat to New Orleans docks. Hans notes the scale. One harvest feeds empires. We scavenged North Africa for scraps. Awe settles, heavy as humidity, as the train skirts bayous, cypress knees clawing mist, oil derricks nodding like metronomes over Spindletop's black bounty. By eve of the third day, Texas looms, flatlands freckled with cattle, windmills creaking to pump aquifers deep. The cars slow into Hearn, transfer point to Camp Hereford, the Revelation's terminus. Feet ache, minds reel. Nolan's maps passed hand to hand bear new marks, sketches of harvesters, notations on horsepower. Not conquest, Hans pens in fading light creation. Every mile erased another lie they'd been told. The Texas sun hammers the panhandle like a drop forge, turning the Llano Estacado into a vast anvil of dust and drought-hardened grass. Camp Hereford sprawls across 1,200 acres of barbed wire and barracks, a frontier fort reborn for the war's quiet harvest. Quonset huts curve silver under the glare, their corrugated ribs echoing the Liberty ships that bore these men westward. Dust devils skirmish the perimeter, but inside, order reigns. Gravel paths raked daily, latrines flushed with artesian aquifers, flags snapping crisp on 80-foot poles. No Dachau shadows here. This is re-education by revelation, where ideology bends not to the boot, but to the blueprint. Hans Radke steps off the troop truck, boots crunching Kellish, Otto Krebs at his side with a duffel slung loose. Exhaustion etches their faces, 3 days of rail rattle leaving bones to jelly, but eyes dart sharp, scouting for snares. 4,500 souls disembark in waves sorted by trade, engineers to Hut Alpha 7, mechanics to Bravo Wing. Guards, National Guardsmen from Amarillo, faces weathered as boot leather, wave them through gates without fanfare. Stella and I name 'em boys, roll call at 600. Chow in 10. No rifles leveled, just clipboards and nods. Inside the compound the air hums with unfamiliar cadence, diesel generators purring from central plants, powering bulbs that banish night entirely. Barracks gleam with fresh pine, bunks 3 high but sheeted crisp, lockers for personal effects, even hooks for tunics. Otto runs a hand over a footlocker, its hasp oiled smooth. Like a dorm in Heidelberg, not a pen. Hans unpacks his diary, stowing it beneath the mattress, the leather warmed by his chest. July 1st, 1943. Arrival in the Panhandle. No screams in the dark, no rats gnawing heels. They build prisons like palaces, efficient, equitable. Why? Camp Hereford is no stockade of spite. It's a laboratory of liberty, one of 155 sites housing 425,000 German POWs by war's end. Texas alone claiming 78,000, their labor the unsung sinew of the harvest. Daily life unfolds as curriculum. Not bullhorn broadcasts of Allied triumphs, but immersion in the mundane miracles of democracy. Mornings muster to work details. Cotton fields under Hereford skies, where POWs swing hose beside Italian captives, sharing water jugs passed without racial runes. Afternoons in shops, lathes humming on blueprints borrowed from Caterpillar plants, teaching tolerances finer than Messerschmitt tolerances. Evenings, the quiet forge of fellowship, where doubt tempers into discernment. Long tables grown under platters, cornbread steaming golden, beans simmered in sorghum, spam sliced thin beside garden greens from Camp Victory plots. Portions heaped generous, 2,000 calories daily, outstripping Wehrmacht field rations by half. No pecking order. Officers queue with enlisted, forks clinking, egalitarian. Hans spoons chili, the spice a Texan fire on tongue, while Otto eyes a pie, apple, lattice crust flaked with cinnamon. Better than Christmas in Munich, he murmurs. Across the hall, Major Paul Nolan circulates, tray balanced, pausing at their bench. Sitting unbidden, voice low. Settling in, Lieutenant? Saw your notes on the train, good eye for the harvesters. We could use that in the shops tomorrow. Building crates for the Air Corps. Pays a quarter-hour canteen scrip. Pay? For enemies? The Geneva says labor, not largesse. Geneva says fair. And fair builds better boxes. No whips here, just contracts. Sign or sit, your call. Otto leans in, curiosity overriding caution. The food, from where? Not army slop, smells of home farms. Nolan nods to a poster. Farmers of Freedom, POWs harvest for victory. Local co-ops, you boys picked half the cotton last week, keeps it off the draft board. Eat what you grow. The meal proceeds in murmurs, but the seed roots abundance as alliance, not alms. Hans chews slow, flavors blooming. Tomatoes from irrigated furrows, corn ground in roller mills. They feed foes to fight famine. The Reich rationed allies to starvation. Afternoons bleed into education's forge. In Quonset classrooms, blackboards chalked with English primers. See spot run. Democracy, government of by, for the people. No swastika bonfires, just phonographs spinning why we fight reels. Frank Capra's collages of Nuremberg contrasted with Lincoln's Gettysburg, the Führer's rant drowned by Jefferson's prose. Instructors, college profs moonlighting, accents from Yale to Yale, eschew sermons for Socratic sparks. What makes a nation endure, one asks a circle of POWs, Hans included. Hands rise tentative, answers veer from Volk to vote. Otto. The machines, you build without breaking backs. Close. The builders, free hands innovate. Edison's bulb from a garage, Ford's line from a barn. Tyranny tinkers, freedom invents. Hans's pen flies in the diary margins. Not propaganda, parables, they show, don't shout. Capra's films, crude cuts but truths peek through the cracks. Reflection stirs unbidden, the Reich's triumph, all torchlight and timber, masking the meat grinders beneath. Cotton fields at dawn, pews and straw hats, shoulder sacks, tractors idling nearby, John Deere's, not Panzers. A black farmer, Ezekiel from Amarillo, demonstrates a mechanical picker, its spindles whirring cotton bolls free. Y'all try, gentle like milk in a cow. Laughter ripples as Otto jams the gears, Ezekiel steadying his hand. No Herrenvolk sneers, just shared sweat, watermelons split at noon under live oaks. Machine shop haze, lathes from South Bend spin brass for shell casings. Otto at a milling machine, blueprint unrolled. Hands assists, calipers clicking tolerances to .01 inch. A woman instructor, Miss Harlan from Texas A&M, adjusts the chuck. Precision's prayer, boys. Miss by a thou, and the round drifts home. Her overalls smudged, voice steady, equal in the engineer's eye, shattering the myth of womanly weakness. Library nook at dusk, shelves bent under volumes, Das Kapital beside the Federalist, Twain's satire leavened with Goethe. Hans pores over How to Win Friends, Carnegie's prose a scalpel to Goebbels' bludgeon. Otto sketches a harvester mod in notebook margins, whispering, "This could feed Bavaria." Compassion creeps in cracks, unheralded. Work details pair POWs with locals, hauling hay for ranchers, repairing fences on co-op spreads. Martha Lewis enters here, a Detroit transplant 28, welder's widow turned camp canteen clerk, her husband lost at Guadalcanal. Freckled and forthright, she mans the counter. Hershey bars, Lucky Strikes, letters home stamped via New York. No venom in her gaze, just efficiency edged with empathy. One sweltering August eve, as thunderheads bruise the horizon, Martha slides a tray to Hans. Coffee black, pie wedge cooling. On the house, Lieutenant. Saw you sketching the dynamo yesterday. Smart lines. He startles. Diary half open on the scarred wood. Enemy kindness. A trap? But her eyes hold no hook, just the hollow of loss mirrored in his own. Wife waiting in Dresden, letters months cold. Wiping steam. My Tom. He fixed engines too. Said war's a bad blueprint. What's yours build? Back home? Bridges. Once. Now. Excuse us for the Führer. She nods, no judgment, pouring seconds. Blueprints change, draw better ones. Otto, queuing behind, catches the exchange, sees the pie shared, a camel offered. She redefines enemy, he thinks later, bunk-bound, not with words, but warmth, a cigarette's glow in gathering dusk. Tension coils through fall's harvest, ideology's bellows stoking inner fires, whispers in barracks. The Yanks hide the rot, Jews pulling strings, strikes crippling the lines. But evidence mounts, newsreels of Willow Run, B-24s rolling off like sausages, letters from kin in camps across the Mississippi, echoing awe. Neuland orchestrates subtle, debate clubs where POWs argue Reich merits against Roosevelt, firesides, votes tallied by show of hands. Defeats sting, but fair, losers buy sodas from the canteen. Winter whispers in November winds, mesquites shedding like spent casings. Then the climax uncoils in tinsel and timber, Christmas, 1943. Barbed wire festooned with pine boughs, Quonset roofs thatched in cedar from Palo Duro canyons. No command performance, voluntary choir forms, POWs mingling carols, still a knock yielding to silent night in halting harmony. Martha and locals arrive by flatbed, arms laden, fruitcakes baked in church basements, socks knit by 4-H girls, phonographs spinning Bing Crosby under strings of Edison pearls. The hall transforms, tables pushed back, tree towering 20 feet, baubles from glassworks in Indiana. Gifts stack modest, pencils for diaries, books on engineering unbound by borders. One soldier, a private from Hamburg, eyes wet, unwraps a harmonica, its reeds sighing Lily Marlene to applause. Noelen stands aside, but Martha weaves through, handing Hans a parcel, leather-bound notebook, ruled fine. "Or better blueprints," she says soft. Toasting with cider mug. Frohe Weihnachten, never thought, in chains, to feel home. This kindness, no propaganda survives it, it's the proof, the heart beneath the hammer. Carols drift bilingual, voices braiding under rafters. Germans and guards, Italians and Texans, the melody a mortar binding fractures. Outside snowflakes rare on the panhandle, dusting wire like truce flags. In that glow, the breaking point arrives, not a thunderclap, but a quiet cleaving. Ideology, that iron idol, cracks under compassion's press. The myth of superior solitude yields to the evidence of shared light. Hans' pens by candle flicker that night, December 25th. They send gifts to ghosts of their dead. Not victory's gloat, but humanity's hand. The Reich preached purity. America practices plenty, for all. Christmas in Hereford is no seasonal slate. It's the anvil's final strike. Through daily rhythms, meals measured equal, lessons lit by reason, labors linked in liberty, the antagonist dissolves. The belief in weakness as emotion's flaw, diversity's doom, exposed as forgery by the facts. Women wielding torches, workers of every creed cranking the wheel, kindness as the strongest alloy. These men, once disbelievers, witness the trial's verdict. Democracy endures because it elevates, not erases. The transformation tempers, slow and sure, from arrogance's brittle edge to awe's enduring grain. As bells toll midnight, the camp hushes, stars pricking the velvet vault. The revelation lingers, a forge fire banked but burning. The Americans had defeated them, not by force, but by example. The high plains awaken under a sky washed pale by the first blush of peace. Mesquite branches etch filigree against the horizon, their pods rattling soft in the wind, a whisper of homecoming for men who have forgotten the sound of birdsong unmarred by flak. Camp Hereford, once a forge of quiet conversion, now hums with the mechanics of release. Manifests clipped to clipboards, trucks idling like patient steeds, the stars and stripes furled not in defeat, but departure. VE Day's echo, May 8, still reverberates in wireless bulletins, the Führer's suicide a punctuation to the Reich's unraveling. But for these POWs, the war's end is personal. A ledger closed, a conscience cracked open. Hans Radke stands at the compound's edge, duffel at his feet, the leather of his diary swollen with 2 years' confessions. His uniform, traded for civilian threads, a wool jacket from Sears Roebuck, hangs loose on a frame leaner from labor, stronger from revelation. Otto Krebs paces nearby, fiddling with a parting gift, a pocket slide rule, etched Texas Tech, its ivory scales, a talisman of tolerances learned in the machine shops. The air carries the scent of rain on red earth, mingled with the faint ozone of packing crates, remnants of the harvest they helped reap. Major Paul Noland approaches, boots scuffing gravel, a sheaf of discharge papers in hand. His face, lined deeper by Normandy's ghosts, holds no triumph, only the satisfaction of a blueprint fulfilled. Lieutenant Radke, Corporal Krebs. Papers in order. Ship sails from Galveston in 3 days. You'll bunk with the Brits. Decent chow, no wolf packs now. He extends a hand, calloused from desk maps turned to memory. Clasping it firm, eyes meeting steady. Danke, Major, not for the freedom, but the sight of it. You showed us the gears. We thought ours turned truest. Gripping back, voice gravel soft. Gears grind without oil, Hans. Yours lacked it, choice mostly. Take it home, rebuild right. Otto nods, slide rule vanishing into pocket. The kindness, Martha's pie, those carols, it stuck, like burrs on wool. Noelen smiles faint, clapping shoulders before turning to the next nod of her patriots. The gesture lingers, a bridge from captor to catalyst. Repatriation unfolds not as rote, but reclamation. A convoy of 425,000 souls ferried back across the Atlantic's healing blue, their holds lighter with baggage unburdened. Operation Keelhaul, the Allies dubbed it, but for Germans like these, its resurrection. From disbelief's dungeon to gratitude's dawn. In camps from Crystal City to Crossville, the moral reckoning ripens. Diaries dissected in firelight debates where swastika certainties yield to democratic drafts. These men, once vectors of the myth, become its morticians. Engineers sketching co-ops over cigarettes, officers parsing plebiscites and pilfered pamphlets. The seeds of post-war bloom here in the Panhandle's unforgiving light. The reckoning ignites in embers glow. A circle of POWs, veterans of the desert and the docks, huddles around a potbelly stove, its iron belly fed by cedar splits from local runs. Radios crackle, BBC, Berlin falls. Donuts sues for peace, faces harden, then fracture, shock yielding to a hollow relief. Hans sits cross-legged, diary splayed like an autopsy, reading aloud from faded script. October 43. Their lights mock our blackouts, factories feasting while we fast. Weakness? No, wizardry. The group leans in, shadows leaping like liberated thoughts. Otto, nursing a pipe of Prince Albert, traded for lathe tips, interjects. Puffing slow smoke curling scripture. Remember Norfolk? Cranes dancing death to our U-boats. I thought it parlor tricks, Hollywood smoke. But the welds, true as Bavarian beer. And the workers, Negroes on booms, women with torches. No lash, no lords, just pay envelopes at week's end. A murmur ripples, nods from a Hamburg machinist, who confesses sketching Ford lines for post-war shops. A Saxon private, eyes distant, admitting the Christmas gifts pierced deeper than Tobruk shells. No propaganda survives such kindness. Hans recites his own words, voice threading the hush. The antagonist, that spectral foe, the creed of conquest as creed, lies eviscerated on the floorboards, dissected by details. The rhythm of assembly lines outpacing Auschwitz's horrors, the equity of English classes where Feldwebels learned beside Fähnriche, the quiet click of typewriters birthing ballots in Noellen's office. Closing the diary, firelight gilding resolve. We were sold strength and solitude, pure blood, iron will. But look, their diversity drove diesels we couldn't dream. Compassion wasn't crack, it was the crank. The Reich broke on its own rigidity. America bent and endured. The circle tightens, voices braiding confessions. One officer, a holdout till VE, cracks. I burned my Iron Cross last week, felt like shedding scales. Laughter, brittle then full, echoes off rafters, catharsis in the compound's cradle. Outside, Martha Lewis lingers by the wire, a thermos of cocoa in mittened hands, eavesdropping not to judge but to witness. She slips a note under the door later. Blueprints for bridges, not barricades. Safe travels. Hans finds it at dawn, folding it beside the slide rule, a relic of redefinition. Workshops at twilight. Otto and Kin fabricate a model co-op mill, gears meshed from scrap powered by a windmill blade. Blueprints bear dual stamps, Krupp lessons, American latitude. A young POW, son of a Gauleiter, traces efficiency curves. Output rises with input from all, not edicts from one. Classroom vigils. English yields to civics, mock elections for mess stewards, ballots stuffed in ammo crates. Hans tallies votes, the arithmetic of agency. 87% turnout, no coercion. Democracy's not debate, he journals. It's decision, daily. Fields at harvest's heel. Tractors loaned from locals, rumble final furrows, POWs at wheels with Ezekiel the foreman, swapping scything tails over lunch pails. Gratitude greens the gaze. Your earth feeds free. A private toasts cornbread crumbling like old oaths. Disbelief transmutes to debt, then drive. Letters homeward multiply. Smuggled via Red Cross, inked with imperatives. Tell the wives, rebuild with reason, not revenge. Noellen's archive swells with affidavits. 80% of Hereford's men renouncing Nazism by VE, their signatures the script of reformers forged in freedom's fire. Hans pens to his Dresden bride. I saw the true arsenal, not tanks but tolerance. Come the peace, we'll plant it here. The journey east commences in June. Convoys, trains reloaded but spirits unburdened. Boxcars rattle through Oklahoma's amber waves, Arkansas's quilted hills, the rails now routes of retrospection. Whispers chain. The Yanks didn't conquer, they converted. At Galveston the Queen Mary waits, her Cunard hull repainted gray but graceful, bunks for 15,000 in tears of truce. Boarding is ritual, papers stamped, hugs from locals. Martha waves from the pier, her figure shrinking to silhouette as tugs warp the liner seaward. The ocean swells gentle, a cradle for the crossing reversed. Hans leans on the rail, Otto beside, the slide rule passed hand to hand like a lodestar. Horizon burns gold. The same sun that scorched Tunisia now gilds the Gulf Stream. Conversation drifts to legacy. Not the panzers they piloted, but the paradigms they pilfered. Mass production minus the Messiah, equity as engine. Gratitude's a funny freight, Lieutenant. We came sneering at softness, left saluting the spine. Those factories, they'll echo in Essen if we speak true. Nodding, final entry. From soldiers to sowers. The moral math. Their output outclassed our obsessions. Democracy's the dynamo, diverse, deliberate. We'll wire it into the wires. The convoy steams unescorted now. U-boats scuttled, skies swept clean. Evenings on deck birth brass bands impromptu, harmonicas wheezing Yankee Doodle fused with Deutschlandlied, reframed sans runes. Stars wheel overhead, navigation by sextant, a nod to Nolan's lessons, plot by principles, not propaganda. Le Havre looms gray and gutted, but the docks pulse with provisional plenty, cranes from surviving yards offloading not ordnance, but olive branches. Disembarkation is dignified. Trains to the Rhine, where occupation zones await, British, French, American sectors laced with re-education echoes. Hans's detail lands in Bavaria, the landscape a palimpsest of rubble and resolve. Munich's spires stubbed, but minds stir. Ex-POWs like him seeding cells of change, whispering of welders who welcomed harvests harvested in harmony. By autumn's turn, the seeds sprout. Hans, demobbed to a denazification board, drafts ordinances. Labor laws laced with union leaven, factories floored in fair wage. Otto returns to his lathe in Nuremberg, mods for peacetime presses, American tolerances, German grit. Their diaries, shared in samizdat circles, fuel the Federal Republic's forge. Basic law penned with Geneva ghosts, Wirtschaftswunder wired to Willow Run's whisper. From 1945's ash, modern Europe rises. Not phoenix of fury, but phoenix of pragmatism, gratitude the glue. The repatriation is no mere reversal. It's renaissance. These witnesses, once warriors of a withered creed, carry home the verdict. Freedom outbuilds fear, not through fiat but fabrication, the patient press of possibility over the panic of purity. In boardrooms reborn from bunkers, they testify, compassion's the clearest calculus, diversity the deadliest deterrent to decay. The war broke bodies on battlefields. America mended minds in its mills, and from that mending, a continent convalesces. Reformed by revelation, resilient in its renewal. As Hans steps from the train in Munich station, diary tucked like a talisman, the platform thrums with homecomers' hush. Otto clasps his shoulder one last. We came as conquerors, but left as witnesses, proof that freedom could outbuild fear. Cranes, American surplus, swing girders over the Rhine, workers of every stripe, arc-welding futures bright. Factories hum anew, lights lacing the night not in war's wage, but peace's promise. The rhythm persists, America's heartbeat, transplanted, thriving. If you believe truth is stronger than propaganda, subscribe for more hidden stories of WWII.